In this video, I'm going to cover the draw tools included with the PFA Zone suite. Our draw tools are conveniently located in the NinjaTrader Draw Tools menu. I'm going to move my mouse and hover over the pencil icon, note the tooltip drawing tool, and I'm going to left click that, which is going to provide me with a substantial drop down menu. Please note these are your standard NinjaTrader tools with the exception of this lower section here. If you notice, of course, our acronym there, PFA, Pure Financial Academy, is indeed preceded for each draw tool. I'm going to begin from top to bottom for consistency and video purposes. I'm going to left click the PFA Power Zone, but before doing so, let's discuss what this actually is. All of the supply and demand zones located on the chart that you can currently see are indeed automated, and all of the information contained in those zones and or the calculations from those zones is also automated. The PFA Power Zone allows us to manually define zones if and when we decide to do that. There are multiple reasons in which case we would want this option. Not only to generate potential supply and or demand zones, but more importantly to define swings and trends and gather the order flow analysis from those. Let's go ahead and left click PFA Power Zone, and you'll notice my icon there also now contains a small pencil, which means that the Power Zone is indeed activated and ready to be drawn. I can move my mouse over any section of this chart, and when I left click, it is going to begin drawing our Power Zone tool. So I'm going to start from the origin of the downtrend here, left click once. As you can see, the zone in itself has been activated as well as its own user interface, rather like each individual automated zone has as well. I can drag anywhere on that chart I desire, and the order flow information is going to be displayed for all of the corresponding data within that particular zone or rectangle. So if I keep pulling this all the way down, I'm going to pull it to the end of said trend. What I'm doing here is gathering all of the order flow information from the origin to the end of the trend. As I mentioned before, we could use this for swings or for forming our own manual zones, things to that extent. The Power Zone in itself will also contain raw numbers. If I were to expand the chart, we could of course see the numbers located here. It also includes our buy versus sell ratio. And just like our automated zones, if I left click on the exterior of the zone, you'll see that user interface and or the buttons pop up below. So I could of course toggle off and on my volume profile, volume ratio, point of control, value area, etc. I could also extend and or unextend the value area, point of control. So as you can see here, there's a minus sign indicating that my labels are extended. All I can see currently is my point of control because I just toggled my value area off. By left clicking again, I can see those labels and unextend them. I can toggle those off, and I will do the same for my point of control. This can be left on, of course, at any time. We can leave one or all of them on. And as you can see here, it's defaulted so that when we do define a power zone, this information will already be there. In other words, we're not going to have to go down here and turn the information on with the extent of potentially the value area and or the point of control. While all of our methodology is defined in our course as well as our live training room, I am going to give a brief explanation of how I personally enjoy using the Power Zone tool, as it is one of my favorites. I have here defined an entire downtrend, and what I'm looking for is not necessarily what has happened so much as what has not happened. If we think logically in the future, we can't necessarily make money from things that have already happened so much as using the information that has not happened. So we're utilizing a forward-thinking approach here. This may be a little bit different than you're used to or the conventional thought process, and of course this can be used in any way that you desire for support and resistance, order flow analysis. Again, we all have our own way of doing things, and hopefully this will benefit you regardless. Again, I'm going to share how I prefer to use it. As you can see here, I've defined the trend as mentioned before, and I've stopped at the end of said trend. Now, as you can see, I have not incorporated any of this data over here. For all intents and purposes, I am pretending that none of this data exists. So I can use the information here in the order profile or order analysis, and I'm looking for things that have not happened. As I go up into these areas, you can see these rather large spikes in price. And what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and grab a simple rectangle. This is a NinjaTrader draw tool. I'm going to left click rectangle. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the areas that I would like to bring your attention to. For all intents and purposes, this is a great location here. And the reason that's a great location is because this is somewhere that for some reason there was a lack of orders that was capable of getting filled there. If I extend that area to the right of my chart, you'll see that we get a very nice reaction on the return to. As this is real-time price, if we move higher, you'll also notice a great area right in here. Again, I'm looking for things that have not occurred, not necessarily the large spikes in price that have already occurred. If I extend this to the right side of my chart, you can see that this is exactly where we are with real-time price. As mentioned multiple times, this is only an example. This is a vast tool that can be used in many different ways, but I did want to give you one example just in the event that you're not quite sure how to utilize the tool in itself. Next, I'm going to move to our PFA fib zones. I'm going to left click the drop down menu. I'm going to scroll down to our PFA fib zone. Our fib zones are indeed Fibonacci retracement ratios. Since we work in zone theory, it is very nice, or convenient if you will, to have zones, and it's aesthetically pleasing. If I begin drawing just like any other tool, I'm going to left click on any origin. It doesn't have to be the origin of a trend or anything. It could be the origin of where you desire. So I'm going to begin at the origin. Just like many, Fibonacci ratios and our Fibonacci retracement zones can be used for future analysis and forward thinking. It helps us to predetermine pullbacks, extensions, and so on. I'm going to extend this to the upside to the end of the first swing. As you can see here, we pull back directly into this green area. While I won't dive into Fibonacci ratios definitively, I will tell you that this is covered in our course. To briefly touch on it, 38.2, 61.8% is a very common Fibonacci ratio for standard pullbacks. And again, this is just an example of that. If I take and pull the end of that fib zone tool to the end of the next swing, you can see also we have another pullback directly into that 38.2 to 61.8% zone. I'm going to take a minute to notate here. Each and every draw tool, the settings are conveniently located in the user inputs window, and you can also make the toggles directly from our quick access menu. Let's go ahead and give an example of that as we speak. I'm going to move up to our quick access menu in the tools menu, and if I left click, we can scroll down. We can see our power zone here. If I were to left click extend profile, you can of course see what's occurring there, and extension of the value area as well as the POC. If I move my mouse up, I'm going to hover over fib zones, and as I can see, we have a plethora of options here. If I would desire to extend those zones to the right, I can do that directly from here. I'm going to left click extend right. As you'll see here, all of my fib zones have indeed been extended and right justified. I can of course undo that with a simple left click of the mouse. I can toggle on off my labels, show them as percentage values versus text labels. There you can see, no longer is it a percentage value, it is utilizing the text values that we've specified in our user inputs window. I'm going to left click again as I prefer to see the percentage values. Zone 1 through 6 are toggles. Sometimes I may not want to see all 6 zones, in which case I can simply remove them from my chart. I'm going to begin from zone 6. Please do note that you will not see zone 6 being removed, of course, because you can't see it. It is below the chart. However, we see zone 1, 2, and 3. So if I select off for these zones, notice on zone 3 there, we just saw it being removed. If I left click again, that zone will indeed display itself once more. Zone 2, I can toggle off and on, as well as zone 1 off and on. Next, I'm going to move into our final draw tool. We have the PFA alert line. I'm going to left click, and as you can see the pencil, meaning now I have activated my draw tool for the alert line. I can take the alert line and I can place it anywhere on the chart. The alert line allows us to place a label anywhere on said chart, and if price touches that label, it will sound off an alert as well as potentially shoot an email notification. This, of course, is dependent on what settings you have input in the user inputs menu. I'm going to go below current price. I'm going to go near this demand zone, and I'm giving a hypothetical here. Let's say that I would like to be notified when we get close to this lower demand level. I don't want to be notified when we're into the demand level, because at that point it may be a little bit too late. So I'm going to go above, and I'm going to left click once, which as you can see is now going to apply a label directly on my chart. As I said moments ago, in the event that price comes down and touches that label, I am now going to get an instant notification via audible and or email, could be potentially both, again dependent on the settings in which you have put in the user inputs window. With the line alerts, I can have 1, I could have 20. There are as many as I want to use. I will, however, give you a warning here. If you have too many line alerts on your chart, you may indeed get many notifications. I'll give an example of this here. If I left click multiple times, each and every time one of these lines are hit, it is going to sound off the audible alert if enabled, as well as execute the email notification if enabled. One final note in regards to our line alerts. You may recall in a previous video of this presentation, we discussed a delay value. We can alter the amount of alerts that we receive based on a second's delay. So in my settings, if I've said that I would like to see the alert occur, but not within 10 seconds, that would mean if we come up and hit this line, we're going to get an audible and or an email alert. If we rally extensively and hit the next label, still within that 10 seconds, we're not going to get the second alert. However, if we rally up, we get our first alert, we rally up within 10 seconds, hit the second alert, go beyond that, and then come back and hit our alert 15 seconds after the first alert, of course we will indeed get that second alert. So again, that delay is just going to help you not get so many alerts, both audible as well as email. Please do recall you can set different delays corresponding the email versus the audible notification or alerts.